Hello and welcome to this introductory video to Doodly. In this video, we are going to have a look at the interface and starting your first scene. So let's get into it. So the first time you open Doodly, you'll be presented with this interface. It's the open interface. The first thing which you're probably going to want to do is just get rid of all the advertising crud down the bottom. It is great to actually see all the stuff they had, but if you don't want to see it, just close it down. The main parts of this is the recent videos you've opened, it'll give you a link for, and your projects tab. The projects tab is where you'll start more than likely going, but if you want a really quick intro, they've got some fantastic templates in here, which you can grab and go through just to start you off and get some brilliant stuff happening really quickly. But for this video, let's just go back to projects and start with a brand new folder for our client called client. And when we get into our client folder, this is just neat for anyone who's used to Windows. It's just neat to keep projects together. It then presents, you can either create a new video from the top clicking that button, or you can create a new button here to go awesome content video. And this is where you can choose which particular board you want as well. Since this is going to be the first video, let's just go for a whiteboard and let's make it a little bit bigger than tiny. Let's just do a 720p. So when you pick open, hit the drop down menu, it does present you with what sizes are on option for you to be able to choose. And there's a nice selection of sizes there. For this video, I'm just going to go for a 720p and I'm going to use a whiteboard. And we just hit create and it'll open up your scene for you. So the first thing you'll notice is the center is your main stage. This is where you'll build your whole scene from. Going up the top, in the top menu bar, you'll see that there is your standard drop down menus. Now these are fairly minimal. There's not a lot in here, mainly because Doodly is a point and click, so there's not much in the menus. You hover over the Doodly label, it doesn't even take you to the website to promote Doodly, so that's a little bit unusual. Next to that, you've got My Videos, which will take you back to your starting splash screen. Tells you in the middle what project you're on, and it tells you your membership over the side if you ever want to change it. To start with, let's have a look over on the left. On the left of your stage is where you'll find all the content that you've got to be able to start off with and start bringing in. Now, Doodly has a lot of preset stuff, which is great to get started really, really quickly. It's really simple to just have a look through a scene, find a scene that you think you're going to be making use of, and you can just click, drag, and drop. And it'll bring that scene in for you to start off with. And Control Z will get rid of that really quickly as well. Next to the scenes, you'll find that you have characters. If you're after something specific or you're after a name, you can search for the character that you're after. You can do something just like girl, and it'll bring up all the girls that are in there. So inside each of these is filters which you can then minimize things down to. So you can filter down to just having girls in casual, and it'll give you a casual, minimize the selection of what you've got. Or trendy, and it'll give you some trendy choices. Now these are all the characters which are included with Doodly. If at any point you want to go into the marketplace and search, they've got a big button there that you can go search in there as well. Next to that you have props. So there's a large selection of categories you can filter down for something that you're after. And again, with the search bar up the top, you can search directly for something specific. Bus seat chairs. With the texts, you've also got text you can bring in. There is a selection of fonts to start off with, but you can always add your own fonts in here as well with the big add button. And next to that, sound, there's a selection of sounds which you can drag and drop are included into Doodly, as well as the final one in here too is the marketplace, which is where when you go buy stuff at the marketplace, this is then where your marketplace stuff, audio, images will come in. But for this, let's go back to scenes, and I'm just going to drop this scene on my board. Now what that has set up for me, it's brought in 3 different assets. And now over on the right, now we can, once I'm happy there, I might actually just go look for a city. So I've just dragged my street in as well. So what, I'm just gonna hit this little arrow on the side to get rid of that side menu now that I've got all my assets that I want on the scene. So what we've got over on the right is what's called the actions panel. And you can see each of these assets we've brought in. The scene we brought in 3 different assets. And I also dropped in a street. The only problem is at the moment, this street is on top of everything else. So what we can do with our actions is just grab this and move it up. And that just changes the order for things that are drawn. In the top right, we've also got what's called the show grid panel. If you want to lay things out visually, you can actually see stuff on your grid, but I'm just going to hide that. Inside this panel, we also have standard actions of save. Preview will give you a specific preview of your scene. Export is when you're finished. Scene settings, this will bring up a window, which is what would have come up. The scene settings you bring up if you want to then change or modify what you're working with. If you untick the use hand style from video settings, you can then change what hand style you want. They do have a lot of choices of hand styles. You can also then change whether you want a dark board, green board, glass board, or a custom board. I'm going to stick with a white board, and you've even got cartoon hands if you want to use a cartoon hand instead. Or the one which is really good right down the bottom, you'll also find no hand. But depending on your client, you might want a hand. So you can choose right-handed or left-handed. They'll flick back and forwards quite happily. You can also have exit animation between scenes. If you want it to swipe left, scroll up or scroll down, or none. You can actually change that as default as well. And it's also got built-in whether you want subtitles. Then once you've changed it, make sure you apply before you do anything else. The tools here is whether you want your scene to be bigger or smaller. You can just scroll in and out using those to make it bigger and easier for you to see. Then you've got your layers orders. If you've ever used something like Photoshop or any other imaging modifier software, you'll be familiar with layers in orders. Now what these layers also tell you is the delay between when that image, what the delay says is when that asset will start being drawn after the previous one, and how long it will then also take to draw on your scene. So at the moment, this building, which is right at the back, will start drawing straight away, and it'll take 3 seconds to draw. So following that, straight away, after 0 seconds, my car will start drawing, and it's going to take 17 seconds. Then my little girl character will start drawing straight away, and she's going to take 3 seconds. And my tools are going to start straight away, and it's going to take 3 seconds. Now the last part of the interface which we're going to look at is what's down the bottom here, which is your timeline. So this is where you can grab your timeline and you can scrub back and forth, but you'll notice that nothing happens. This timeline doesn't represent what's happening on the stage. There are 2 ways of being able to see what's happening on your stage. You can either hit the show preview, which will then try to give you a really rough preview of what's going on. Or the other way is hide preview, your actions to hit preview here. And that will give you a detailed perspective, a detailed render of what's coming out of your scene. But let's just do some modifications so we can try this out. The first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the tools. I don't want them. So I'm just going to select them and delete them. It's going to say, oh, you're going to remove them. Okay. I am also going to grab my little girl here. And we see that on top of each of these, you actually have a selection of tools that you can use. You've got flip. Now, the first one is the settings. So you can hit on that little block and it'll tell you exactly what's happening with that asset. They'll tell you the size of it, rotate it, what color it is, the opacity of it. You can change the opacity of any of these to make them lighter into the background. It tells you what's going to happen with it. It's going to draw or it's going to have none. I'm going to draw over 3 seconds and it's got no sound that goes along with it. Next to that you have flip, so you can just flip an image back and forth, or you can bring it forward in here as well, or send backwards if it's in front or behind something. You can also do that with dragging it up and down in your layers, or you can bin it and get rid of it. But on each corner you can scale it up and down to make it bigger or smaller, or select it in the middle, you can drag it around. So I'm going to put her over here, make her bigger, and then I'm going to click on the car and I'm just going to make that smaller because I don't think the car should be so big. I'm going to put that there, click on the city, make that bigger in the background so it sits back in there. All very quick, all very easy. The last thing which I'm going to want on my scene, which I should have dragged in before, is just some words. I can just grab that, click, drag, drop, and it gives me a text box down here. So double click on the text box, I can then put in what I want. And inside the options for this, you can have it coming in from the right, or you can word wrap it if you want it to stay inside. We just click done and it changes the words that are here. To make them bigger, again, you've just got this, which can drag it out to make that appear bigger. I just want to put it down in this little bit of blank space, and you can see that it's come up on my layers, that it has no delay and the duration is 0.9 seconds. So what I'm going to do next is adjust the timing of these things which is happening. The delay of the building, I want it to start straight away, but I don't want it to take 3 seconds to draw the building, so I'm just going to hit the little minus button to make it shorter. The car, I don't want it to take 17 seconds to draw. I'm going to take that a long way down just by clicking the minus, or actually I can double click in here and go 6. And it's only going to take 6 seconds to draw the car. And then I'm going to make her have a bit of a delay before she starts being drawn, 1 second. And I'm just going to make her take 2 seconds to be drawn. But I'm going to say, I want to cry. I'm going to make that have, again, just click in here and go 2. And it's going to take 0.9 of a second to draw it on. The last thing I'm going to drop in here is a sound. I'm going to look for a crash. Metal crash. Now to get this into the scene, you can drag and drop it just down here in the music. Now, there is also a spot here for you to be able to drag recordings if you want to talk over top of them, which you can do. So let's just have a look at what that looks like now as a preview. Hit play. All right, so for me, there's a couple of errors still. I want this to have a delay before it starts. I want to have a bit of blank space at the front before it does anything. This takes way too long, so I'm just going to make it less time. And I'm only make it 3 seconds, 3.5 seconds. Half a second delay before she starts getting drawn. And I want to move, I don't know if I'm going to want to move my audio now. I'm just going to drag my audio up to there. There we go. And that is then preview this as a render. I think I want a bit more time at the end before it finishes, so I'm just going to go extra time at the end. 2 seconds. So just click the scene settings and go, I want some extra time at the end. 1, 2, apply. And that is it. That's my preview which I've got. I'm happy with that. I've worked this up that I've got a nice little scene that just runs really quickly. Now all I need to do for the final thing is export it. You can save it to wherever you want. As a file format, you can go for MP4 and it tells you the resolution that you started off with, and just hit continue and it'll save it. And there you have it. There's an introduction to the interface and your first Doodly done inside Doodly. Hope you found that very helpful, and until the next time, I'll say bye-bye.